And next year is the 50th anniversary of Stonewall and my 80th birthday, so. If the young men like young old men, I'm 79. If they like young men, I could be 31. Okay, but before we talk about Stonewall, I want to talk about the early days of gay life in New York City. In the 50s, it was against the law to serve homosexuals alcohol in New York City, and the mafia owned gay bars. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. My family's from Russia. And I had to belong to a gang. In the 50s, if you weren't in a gang in Brooklyn, everybody would beat you up no matter where you went. And when we had to go to war against another gang, and I had to fight somebody, I actually rubbed against the wrong parts of their bodies as I was fighting with them because I didn't want to hit them. And that's true. And so one day I went into the village and I saw a couple of gay people and I followed them and they went into a restaurant called Mama's Chicken Ribs. And I went in, I had a cup of coffee, and I noticed everybody in there was gay. And the next thing I know, I was working there and managing it for about 8 years, and I loved every minute of it. It was a dump, but it was a hangout for all gay people, and I met some of my best friends, thank God, knock wood, I could do it, I'm a tree. Some of them are still alive. We lost a lot of them over the years to AIDS and old age, heart attacks. And there were certain laws in New York City in those days called Entrapment Laws, where if you're in a bar, gay bar, and a cop comes in and you don't know he's a cop, and he offers you money to have sex with him, and you walk out the door and he arrests you and says you asked him for money, you got arrested, and the judge would believe that cop, and you actually went to jail, and you had to get a lawyer and everything, and your family would find out. And we had congregating laws. Like if you and I were standing on a corner more than 10 minutes, we could get arrested for congregating because they thought we were there trying to get picked up. We had nicknames for the cops in New York City. We called them Lily Law, Betty Patrol, and Betty Badge. And when we passed the cops, because they irritated us, somebody would say, "Are you going to the party Betty's throwing Lily tomorrow night?" The cops knew that was them, and they'd just give us dirty looks. Or I would walk ahead of the group and somebody would say, "Tree, does your father work?" I go, "Oh, no, he's a cop." Or our favorite thing was, "What's a penny made out of?" "Dirty copper." And if we really wanted to annoy them, we would line up and start like a conga line, and we start singing, "We are the village girls, we wear our hair in curls, we wear our dungarees way up above our knees," and we do the can in front of the police. Now, when there's 15 of us, they couldn't do anything but just call us every name in the book. And this is when we were going to different bars. Now, in those days, if you didn't know where a gay bar was, you never went to one because it was against the law to serve a homosexual alcohol. And Uncle Mafia knew that, and they opened up gay bars. It was $1 to get in, and the drinks were a little more expensive, and they made a lot of money. They liked us, but they didn't understand us. I worked for Harry the Horse, Frankie Shades, and Fat Tony at one bar. I worked for Benny Keys, Joe the Wop, and Petey Flam at another bar. And they were a lot of fun. They treated us real well. But unfortunately, we would tell our friends, "Don't drink the liquor." At the end of the night, we put water in the gin, vodka, rum, and tequila, and God knows what the brown shit was we put in the scotch, bourbon, and rye. Now, if you were complaining and went outside to a cop, he'd say, "What bar?" Charlie was getting $25 a month not to know there was a bar there. Now remember, a dozen eggs was 80 cents at that time, a loaf of bread 20, so $25 a month was a lot of money. And the watch commander got money, everybody got money to keep the gay bars open. I went to jail 10 to 12 times just for being in gay bars. They did not fingerprint us or take pictures. We'd be in a big bullpen, and every once in a while they noticed this very handsome young man in a suit had to sit to pee, so they figured out, oh my God, that's a lesbian. They had to get a matron and take her to the women's part. Because the lesbians in those days actually shaved until they grew mustaches, sideburns. One girl, Paula, actually put a bald spot here. They wore men's clothes. They strapped like you wouldn't believe. And we had so much fun with them. There was a club that all the waiters were lesbians in tuxedos, and there was a drag show with a live band. No lip syncing in those days. Everybody sang live with a band. I mean, full drag shows like a Broadway show. And we had a lot of fun in those days by traveling from bar to bar. And we had good cops and bad cops. Charlie, if I had needed 35 cents to go home, he'd give it to me. Whitey on 6th Avenue, if I asked him for anything, as hard as he could, he hit you in the back of the leg with a nightstick. And he would say, move on, faggot. Now, we were used to that. We were lesbians, gay, you know, everybody called us names in those days. It was I have to read the notes, because some of the bars I worked with, at Ninth Circle was a bar I worked at for 25 years. It was a very well-known drug den, prostitution, everything, but the cops got paid off. I worked there for 25 years. Rock Hudson, Tab Hunter, Peter Allen, Bianca Jagger, all of them came into this bar. And Janis Joplin was one of our regulars, 1969, before she died. She'd come in the bar and I'd go, Bobby, and she'd go like this and walk right past me. I always told her I love singing, I don't like screaming. And the owner wanted to fire me, and she said, hell no. If there was an empty seat in Madison Square Garden to a sold out, I know Tree didn't come. But she was a wonderful, wonderful human being. So the bars were so different in those days. They were all painted black on the inside. The original Stonewall was a burnt out bar called Bonnie's Stonewall Inn. Murphy came in, they didn't fix anything. They just painted over the burn marks and everything, black ceiling, floor, walls, and opened the doors to a lot of money. And my friends behind the bar were Mario Mae West, and my friend Johnny Marino, who's now Johnny Poole, who's Uncle Johnny on the Elvis Duran show. I don't know if you get Elvis out here. He's a big DJ in America. And Johnny and I are friends 55 years. And they were the bartenders, and you had to buy tickets because they didn't trust anybody with money. And if they ever caught a manager or a bartender reselling a ticket, you didn't get fired. They broke your arm, and you worked like this, so everybody knew you stole from the boys. And I swear to God, and if you were good, you eventually became a manager and ran a club for them. I never worked for them. I just, you know, as bartender, yes, I never stole anything. I was so afraid of them. There were raids constantly, every bar. But it was not a raid for homosexuality. They couldn't care less if we were gay. They came in because they knew how much money that bar was making. They raided the bar. That was their way of telling them, next week, the envelope has to be bigger. It was called Brown Bag Friday. The back of the car, when you opened it up, you saw all brown bags from gay coffee shops, restaurants, anything gay was in the back of that. A sergeant would go around and pick it all up. And it was fun. I mean, you know, you look at it back then, like the trouble getting beat up, hit by cops, gay bashing then, and we still laugh about it because we were gay. We had places to go. My family had no idea yet. My friends in my gang didn't know, because every time I had to leave, I told them I'm going to go visit my grandmother, and I would sneak into the village and go to a gay bar or a gay restaurant or a gay coffee shop. They never knew my grandmother was dead, so. But it was a way of getting out of beating up somebody or rubbing against them accidentally, you know. But, when the raids came, they'd line us up. Nobody carried ID. If I would have got killed, my mother would have never known. My name in those days was called Fenwick Fingernail. So when a cop would sit at a table and say, what's your name? I went, Fenwick Fingernail. He never looked up, he wrote it down. Somebody would say Donabella Beads, Georgie Wolf Girl, Queen Elizabeth II. And this cop never looked up, and we went into a paddy wagon to jail. And the judge the next morning would come in, some judges would say, you're wasting my time, get these fags out of here. And some judges would say, we're a bunch of perverts and fine us $20. That was a lot of money in those days, so they sent Enid the Hat Girling. Her name was Enid Girling, if you want to look her up. She's all over Google. She'd come down and pay the fine. And we couldn't figure out how much an $800 fine become $100 until she died, and we read her life story. She was having sex with the judges and the district attorney and the lawyers in bathrooms, hallways, on top of their desks. And if you look it up, you'll read it, that's the truth. And she was literally this big, known as Enid the Hat Girling. and she'd pay the fine, and we'd all go back to the bar the next night. Now, the Stonewall Raid was different because it was raided by police headquarters. They were after the mafia bosses, laundering money, no license, and they found one of their associates down by the pier, a little under the weather. So they raided the bar, and they came in nasty. Normally, the 6th Precinct would come in and go, "Okay, girls, line up." And we'd line up. These guys came in, they threw drugs on the floor, said, "Step on that, that's yours." They were pushing people, slapping people. And they accidentally hit this very nice young man with a mustache named Stormy DeLevere. If you look up Stormy, she was the premier lesbian of New York City with a full mustache. She was a male impersonator in a show called The Jewel Box Review, 35 men in drag and a girl with a 15-piece orchestra that traveled America doing Broadway shows. And she died at 93, and she was my dearest friend. I met her in 1958 and loved her all my life. Well, it took 2 cops to pull her off the cop. She was bashing his face in. And that's what started some of the melee. We started throwing bottles and chairs. Now, my friends Frankie Bubbles and Charlie Crystal, we all had names, we hit the side door because there was a plywood wall by a door that nobody knew about. We pushed our way out. And we were outside, everybody was throwing rocks. We broke the windows. We broke the wall behind the window. And according to the movie Stonewall, if anybody saw it, it's one of the worst things I've ever seen. They have people squirting lighter fluid in the cracks of the walls. Name somebody you knew carried lighter fluid. We lit the garbage cans in the area and threw them through the open windows. We set a police car on fire. 2 people pulled a parking meter out of the ground by doing this for about 10 minutes, used it as a battering ram to knock the doors down. The police were barricaded inside with one of the owners, Fat Tony. He couldn't get over the bar fast enough, so they caught him. Mario Mae West was a little chubbier also, and they arrested him. 3 or 4 lesbians dressed as men, a couple of drag queens. And remember, in those days, if you dressed as a woman, you had to have 3 articles of male clothing on underneath to prove you were a man, and vice versa with the woman. Otherwise, you went to jail because they thought you were dressing as a woman to pick up men, and the lesbians were dressed as men to try to pick up women and rob them. Remember, it was a disease. We were sick. We all should have been put away. Mayor Koch was anti-gay before he ran on a gay ticket, became mayor. And he worked with mafia. Eddie the Skull Murphy, big mafia boss. And the '69 raid was the beginning. We had no idea. We were just having so much fun throwing rocks, bottles, haunting the cops, shaking paddy wagons. In fact, one of the paddy wagons had a lock like this. We hit the lock, the doors open, everybody ran up the block, they were scattering. And the neighbors on the block and the stores, there was like 5 or 6 stores, let the gay people in their store and said, "You can't come in and arrest these people." And this is 1969, and in the year 2018, we still have gay bashing, which is ridiculous. Oh, thank you. Vodka? Water. I don't even bathe in water. What are you talking about? Thank you, anyway. But as I said, the neighbors were helping us out because they kept saying they're not bothering anybody. Police raids were the stupidest thing in the world, but we got to remember it was for money only. Now, at the rebellion, we were having so much fun outside. The neighbors were coming out. It was like 20 of us, 40 of us, 70 of us, 120, people walking their dogs, tourists, anybody in the neighborhood started gathering. The fire department pulled up, saw what was going on, and just kept going. They didn't want to get in trouble. And the cops actually finally gave up. As we were wrestling with them and breaking the windows, the riot squad did come, because the 6th Precinct would not help the police because it was screwing up their money. Yeah. The riot squad came and started nightsticks. Now, I could do something in 1969 I can't do now. Run. A woman in a walker can catch me now. But we ran back to Mama's Chicken Rib and swore if the cops came in, we were there forever and nobody, but they never came in. And the next night we went back and the boards were up already and they were writing on them. And I was avoiding cameras like you wouldn't believe because my mother had no idea. And we thought it was over. There were very few raids after that, the following year, that year. So the next year, Charlie, Frank, and I, and a bunch of us are walking up Christopher Street, and we see hundreds of people with banners and flags going to march to Central Park. First, we thought they were nuts because Central Park's a long way from Greenwich Village. And our friends were on there, and they said, why don't you come in and join us? I said, I don't think so. Charlie said we could walk on the sidewalk because there were cameras and people taking pictures. So as we're walking up the sidewalk, there's parked cars, traffic, and the march. And as we're walking up 6th Avenue to Central Park, we heard everybody, queer, fag, dyke, lesbian, everything in the world. We got to Central Park. There were 2 people making a speech. I said, who are they? We said, I don't know. We turned around and went back down to the village and hung out. Few people started the first street fair. It was from 7th Avenue down to the Hudson River, but it was only lesbian bars, gay restaurants. They had a dunking booth. They had throw pies at your favorite bartender. It was to raise money and have a good time. Then it was taken over by Heritage of Pride. Now you have, they sell pillowcases, pillows, spices, every kind of food you could think in the world. It's just for money, and the gay people were pushed out. Our gay pride parade last year was 9 hours and 30 minutes. And it was all corporate, because TD Bank, Monster Energy Drink paid $25,000 to get a float in the parade, and the Stonewall float was way in the back. And by the time we started, they didn't get down to the village till almost 9 o'clock. I was on the first float. I had the honor to be with Edie Windsor, and she was a fabulous lady, but unfortunately she was losing it. I must have made it 80 times, and she kept saying, what's your name again? and sometimes 3 or 4 times in the same day. And then we lost her just recently, and she was a fab. Remember, she was an icon in gay life, fighting for her rights with her girlfriend. I would never fight for my rights of any of my boyfriends. They come and go as fast as I do, so. Now, you all have dirty minds, you know that. I was talking very clean and honest. And so after the rebellion and the first gay pride parade, we thought nothing was going to happen to that. And all of a sudden, 49 years later, we have our rights. We're getting gay marriage. I was never for that in the first place. You know, I do have a drip dry wedding gown in my closet in case anybody's interested, but I do not want to get married. I like younger men, and they're going to marry me for the money I don't have. But we have so much more to go. We have to fight our new administration. Well, Obama made the village area, 8.5 acres, a national landmark. I mean, backlash from the Republicans was ridiculous. And then we hung the first gay flag in that park. And in the history of the United States of America, that's the first time a gay flag has ever flown on anything that was a national monument, a national park, or anything. And we're very proud of that in New York. And we're hoping to go further. We're looking for a building. There's a beautiful building that we want the city to give us to be a gay and lesbian museum. They want to do it in Washington, and we keep saying, no, it started in New York. It should stay in New York. And I like the fact that I travel around the United States lecturing to high schools and colleges about the history, because the younger generation have no idea how many times I went to jail, the trouble I got into, you know, just for being in a gay bar. And I look forward for the younger generation, because I'm not going to be here forever. You know, I'm the past. Some of the kids here are the present. The younger ones are the future. Don't screw it up. And I'm still fighting for my rights. See, everybody asks me if I belong to an organization. In my younger days, I was having so much fun being gay. I didn't want to do anything but be gay. I didn't want to join the Madison Society. I didn't want to join this. I didn't want to join that. When I got older and I was forgetting what sex was like sometimes, I started joining organizations, and now I belong to so many of them. And it beats time, for God's sakes. Yeah, and I lie about my age once in a while, because everybody says I don't look 79, which thank God that is. And I don't have a boyfriend at the time. I'm looking for one for the weekend. I don't kiss on the first date. But, you know, gay life has been very good to me. I met some fabulous people in and out of the gay organization, even straight people that have backed us. 2 years ago, Peter was there at the Imperial Court, which I'm a member of also in New York City. Ian McClellan came to support me, and he's one of my dearest friends. And he made a speech that had everybody amazed. I mean, he just stood there, and we were trying to get him off because he kept going on. And I'm standing going, Peter, Ian, shh. But I couldn't get it. And it was an amazing speech. And I hope if you ever come to New York, you come visit me at Stonewall. I work there Thursday, Friday, Saturday from 2 to 9. I get off at 9. I could probably get some of you off by 10 after. Saturday nights, I have to go back to the home. They change my Depends. So. But that's about it. If anybody has any questions about my life or the life of homosexuals in New York City. Yes, my love.
Yes. I have heard rumors that at the night of the raid, and everybody, there's all the confusion, that a few blocks away from Stonewall was a Quaker meeting house, and that meeting house opened its doors to be a refuge from the police, and therefore it was the first religious organization to show support to the community starting that night.
That is very true. A lot of us went. I went to Mama's Chick Rib. Some of the kids that were hurt, right, broken finger from a nightstick, went to the Quaker house. Yes. And to this day, all 49 parades, the Quakers march in every gay pride parade. And they get amazing applause when they walk by. And when PFLAG started, a small organization, they get a big applause. And now we have SAGE, a senior ad for the gray environment, all the elderly. Some of them are in their 80s and 90s. They rent a gigantic bus so they can wave outside the windows. Every time I send them a check, I say, room with a view, please. Because eventually I'm going to go there. And but the Quakers were fabulous, because hospitals would not let the gay people in that were bleeding and anything, because they knew what happened about the raid. But the Quakers were the first ones, and I'm so proud that they march every year in our parades.
Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me of that. Any questions? Come on. Yes?
You said something about during the raid that there was drugs.
Our bar has an original sign from the night of the rebellion. Some woman gave it to us. This is a raided premise. We have that in our front door when you come in. But that's how they did it in those. When they raided the bar, they couldn't serve alcohol. You had to serve juice and soda. But let's face it, the liquor was watered down, so I'd rather drink the soda and juice. But it was so different the way the cops treated us. And Charlie Cochran, one of my dearest friends, was a sergeant in the New York City Police Force. He went before the city council and declared himself a homosexual. And he's the man that started GOLD, the Gay Officers Action League in New York City, which was 2 members, and now it's hundreds upon hundreds. And we just came, 2 weeks ago, we went to the GOLD Awards, where they present people in the community with big, all kinds of awards. And the Imperial Court, of which I'm a member, we're invited every year. But we have to go in regalia and, crowns and everything. But I always wear my Stonewall stash. We go to the city council presentation of awards. I've got a few over the years. My whole house is full of them. I just glue them to the walls. It beats painting and dusting. I'm not kidding. And I'm very appreciative of everything I get. And it's embarrassing sometimes, like when people thank me for being there. I just happened to be in that bar that night. Remember, we went to jail many times, but we did not know that was the raid upon raid that was going to actually set the United States and the world. I brought the first gay flags to Czechoslovakia and Poland to friends of mine that lived there. They had no idea what it was. And now there's gay parties everywhere. At the bar the other week, we had people from the first time. I always ask when I hear an accent, because I can know if I'm going to get a tip or not. From Estonia. That was the first time you ever had Estonians in there. French and Germans, very rarely we talked. Hi, thank you. That's about it. Yeah. But I'm working there like, 48 years on and off. When the raid came, we had to stop, and I worked at the Ninth Circle. Then I worked at Julius's, the oldest gay bar in America. It opened in 1860, went gay in 1960. And people were sitting in that bar in 1876 reading General Custer Killed at the Little Big Horn. That's how old that bar and building are. When I went in there was sawdust on the floor and spittoons in 1959, 60 when I first went in there. And I wound up working there for 5 years. And now I'm back at Stonewall with the old junior mafia, who couldn't spell mafia, and the new owners of 12 years that fixed the place up, put liquor back in. When he had it, Dominic, I had to bring $200 to work every day. I had to buy liquor, beer, and ice, because nobody would deliver to him. And as I made money, I put the receipts in and took the money out. And then he lost the bar because he owed $200,000 in back rent, and they took it away. And then the duplex, with their owners, took the place over, renovated it a little. I was laying on the beach in Brazil when they said, please come back, we want you working. I said, fine. And I'm there now 17, 18 years. So I'm bartending 50 some odd years on one block. Because my mom would let me cross the street by myself. So any more questions?
Who owns it now?
The duplex, it's Tony, Bill, and Kurt. Kurt's the main owner. And we have a lesbian named Stacy Letts, who is a limited partner, and she brought in lesbian groups. We have a lesbian go-go night with go-go girls. And then we have another night where the girls come in and they play a beer tongue and they have Jello shots. And most of it's mixed. In New York City, we mix very well. There's not any lesbian bar does not let men in. Men go in and out. We dance together. It's been from day one. The night of the Stonewall, it was lesbians and fag hags. I don't know if you know what a fag hag is. There's not a restaurant or bar in Greenwich Village that's not mixed. No matter how straight you think it was or anything, you always go in and you'll see gay couples. I hang out in a German restaurant when I get off work called Lederhosen, and a couple of years ago, the owner, Dirk, Tree, are you trying to turn my bar gay? I said, sorry, too late. Now he comes to my bar and he brings his German friends and they like to drink. His staff has been to the bar. I bring my customers and friends to that bar. It's just commodity in New York City that all about, we recommend the bar. Like if you two came into my bar, we say, if you like piano music, the duplex on the corner. If you like this, go to Ty's. We send each other to the bar. All the bars in New York City do that. Years ago, no. Years ago, they all were in for themselves. But nowadays, everybody is so close. We have some straight, now that we're a landmark, straight people come in. I have this couple that comes in once a month from Connecticut, and I have to make them 5 or 6 each old fashions. I know. Now, I work with a lesbian named Mel, and when somebody says to her, would you make me an old fashioned? She goes, ask him, he makes them better. I want to kill her. Because you got to sit there. But I'm bartending. I don't intend to retire ever. My friend Sherwood retired at 88, and I told him I would retire at 87. But he was a guest bartender until he was 92, and we lost him at 97. And age killed us. We lost a generation. Thousands of people, friends, customers, and acquaintances. And but nowadays, everybody, knock wood, is playing the game properly, and nobody's denied us. We come into the bar, and everybody's welcome. If you are nasty and want to start a fight, we have people that will escort you out. We just want everybody to come in, drink, have a good time. We play videos, we have pool tournaments, we sponsor 5 or 6 different teams. And the new owners, I love them dearly. I knew most of them over 30 years anyway. When they took it over, they said, you're coming back, but nobody else. They said, because you talk to everybody, you have a crazy sense of humor, and people like that, so that's why I'm still there. But they won't give me a raise.
Did you know Marsha P. Johnson?
Yes, Marsha B. Johnson was a street kid. And if we felt sorry for her, somebody would pay the $1 to let her in, or the owners would let her in. She was a fun person, a little crazy, but fun. And I knew Sylvia Rivera when she was a drag queen, before she was a tranny, when she used to go in there. Now, they always asked me the night of Rebellion, were they there? I said, we said hello and goodbye. We didn't understand them, so we didn't want to hang out with them. We didn't know drag queen. We had a little group of friends. Other groups were here and there. We had our corners where we danced. And when Sylvia died, Harvey Forrestein, a whole bunch of us, carried her ashes to the Hudson and dumped her in. Unfortunately, Marsha was murdered. And, but everybody knew, how could you not know somebody standing in front of Bart screaming every night? And Marsha was that way. And there were a lot of people in the city that were like outrageous that we miss. They added a little life to gay life, the way they dressed, the way they acted. Unfortunately, everybody is so subdued now, and the younger generation just come in to dance and drink and party. And I do that myself, because I'm never going to get old, I hope.
I try my little bit and make my own colorful clothing.
I noticed that. I thought maybe you shot your lawn chair or something. But you keep wearing it. When it comes back in style, you can say I was first.
How did the riot start?
With the cops coming in and pushing us around and everything. And when they started with Stormy, people were irritated because we knew it was a lesbian. If you have to look Stormy up. Even when she died at 93, she still looked like a little old man. And she was very handsome and mustache. She was African American and German, very light skinned. She sang as a woman years ago with Billie Holiday and all those people. And I met her in 1958, the same year I met Cheetah Rivera when she was in West Side Story, because I hung out with her husband in Brooklyn. Oh, God, am I old. I was telling Peter earlier, I was the busboy at the Last Supper. That was my first job. Any more questions?
Like to fully have it be part of society.
Well, I like what's going on. I mean, we had nothing in those days. You know, it was against the law to do anything. I mean, we were watched. You know, if we walked the street, they knew we were gay. Cops would give us attitude. I mean, the freedoms we have now are amazing. Nobody bothers. So, you know, the 6th precinct is now 40% gay policemen because they know how to handle a gay crowd. We still have gay bashing in the village. In fact, I was showing them pictures. There were a couple of people in the bar last Friday night, I'm sorry. I was home, and they were thrown out because they were acting very weird. They came back with baseball bats, shattered our windows, broke the neon sign that says the Stonewall Inn, but as they pulled out, a cop car just happened to be there, and they found cell phones of the people they robbed in Stonewall. Wow. So they are going away. We had to put cameras in because we have a park across the street that during the summer, nice people don't hang out there, that they would come in and women that would leave their pocketbook on a chair and then go for a walk or dance or go to the bathroom would come out and they had no more pocketbook. So now we have cameras, we have professional doormen and security. We had to hire a whole new group to keep our customers safe. And now it's so much better, it's so different. Every bar in the village now has security. We have machines that actually, if you give a credit card, ID, and it's a phony, it will tell you. Because there are kids that are trying to come in. We used to have 18 to 21, and it's too much trouble, because the older men were buying 2 drinks, and so we had to stop that. And then we had a ghetto night, and that's the only night we searched people. And at the end of the night, we found empty bottles of booze, cans of beer all over the place. And we threw one guy out, and he shot through the windows a couple of times. So, you know, you never know what's going to happen anywhere, any day, anyhow. Yes, my love.
I don't know New York at all, but I just wondered, in all the boroughs, are there gay bars in all the boroughs, and are they, I don't know, are they all kind of have their own flavor, different, compared to the village? Or
Well, I live in, the village has a lot of gay bars. I live in Chelsea, which is the next little section, and we have a few gay bars there. And then Times Square, which was dangerous in those days, there usually was 1 or 2 sleazy bars, and the rest were boy for rent bars. They had about 8 or 9 of them, and there's none now. The streets are well lit. We have gay restaurants, gay hotels, gay nightclubs. It's become a mecca for people. Queens has a few gay bars, so does Brooklyn. Staten Island, too many Italian straight boys that are gay don't want to go to gay bars on Staten Island. They're afraid somebody will see them. So they come in, we call them bridge and tunnel.
So like Hispanic, Puerto Rican.
We have Spanish, but, well, our bar is very mixed. And Esquilita was very Spanish, and they had an African-American night and a lesbian night. But then the cops closed that place because it was horrible. But we have everything. Like in Harlem, there's a lot of Spanish and black bars. And we have, right in the village, there's on Christopher Street, there's the Hangar, which is mostly African-American. Across the street, it's Denim and Cowboy. A little of everything. New York has a little of everything. We're a 24-hour city. I can go to Chinatown at 4 in the morning and have breakfast. We're 24 hours. Bars, unfortunately, have to close at 4, but sometimes they squeeze it till 5. We used to have a lot of after-hour bars, like Studio 54. After that, we'd go to Crisco Disco. And it had a gigantic can of Crisco at the end. The DJ was on top of it. And Disco Sally used to go there. Now, Disco Sally was literally that big, not like in the movie. And Princess Caroline of Monaco was there. Paul Lynde was being thrown out every night because he drank and it was very nasty. It was owned by the boys. And the cops would drive by, never notice any of the limos, never noticed the red carpet or the line going down the block to get in because they were getting a few dollars not to know there was a bar there.
Are any of the bars owned by the mafia now?
No. We see, that's just it. Now, the big clubs that spend $5 million on lighting and $10 million on their money could be coming from them. They could be silent partners, like the big, gigantic clubs that we have in New York City. Because when we go there, which I don't anymore because I'm too old to go to those places, we notice people there that we know that we used to be connected. Most of the old boys are all gone. Fat Tony was the last one to die about 2 years ago, and because he went to jail like 8 or 9 times. But now I don't think the mafia is connected with anything, not regular bars. I don't know about Brooklyn or Queens because I don't have a visa. But in New York, no. More?
Have you noticed any increase in violence or aggression since the election of our current?
Not really. The violence is on our part trying to destroy Trump. On Facebook, I keep putting down, he's not my president. And he's embarrassing for us. He hates New York because New York hates him and voted, 80% of the people voted not for him, and he knows that. There hasn't been any violence. Every once in a while, we get a nut job sitting at our bar with a Trump supporting. But we tell people, no politics, no religion, drink and shut up.
Are there many all-age venues? Like we have one here, all-age venues where under 21 can go to. We have one here.
We don't have it anymore in New York City because there was too much trouble. Maybe some of the straight clubs do, but none of the gay bars do. Anybody else? Yes, my love.
Will you tell us more about what you hate about the Stonewall movie?
It was whitewashed to the whole thing. I watched like 35 minutes of it and turned it off. I waited till it came on cable again, and then I watched it, and there's certain parts I laughed because they had Marsha and the people. They had Eddie the Skull Murphy running Stonewall. He was not involved with that. He was involved with Peter Rabbit on the other side of town, but because he was such a character in the village, Eddie the Skull, that they had him managing the place. They actually built that entire block in Canada. And the Stonewall sign is all wood. It's not the original metal. It's in Virginia. They donated it to Stonewall. But we have to get permission from the Historical Society to hang it. And we've been waiting 2 or 3 years already. Because we want to put that up because that was part of the main building. I have a menu from Stonewall from 1932, and a 5-course lunch was 75 cents. But the movie was his inception of what he thought happened. Now, Google was supposed to have a private showing of it, and one of my friends is the vice president of Google, and he told them that I was coming, and they canceled it. And when he said why, they said, we don't want to hear him. Because I would have actually got up and started screaming. because it was not that, it was a horrible. And the original Stonewall from about 10 years before that was drag queens who never were at Stonewall telling them what they thought happened. They had them on trains in mink coats in the 50s. No. We would have beat them up. We didn't understand it. We didn't like it. We never knew. Like most of the drag queens at Stonewall were just neighborhood people. Like Gypsy wore a hat with a veil and opera gloves. Gigi Duval was a performer. Sylvia Rivera. You know, they were fun. But we didn't want to be seen out in the street with them because you never know who's watching you. When we went to a bar, we knocked on the door and looked like this in case somebody we knew was watching us go in the bar. Now, if you're from Ohio, what the hell are you looking both ways for? Because nobody from Ohio is going to catch you. But we was nervous about that because a lot of people were closeted in those days. The cops. Now, when they raided the bar and they found important people that were in the bar, presidents of banks, vice presidents, everybody thinks the cops would have blackmailed them. I mean, the mafia would blackmail them. No. The police found out who they were and then told them, if you don't give us this, we're going to put your name in the newspaper. A married man with 3 kids in a gay bar got raided. The cops would just throw you in jail because they didn't care. But the boys had to make money, and they knew how to make it. They opened up gay bars everywhere. And a dance studio and on a pizza parlor, back of a pizza parlor, wherever we could dance, we went. And now we have bars are wonderful now. I have so much fun going to them. Unfortunately, I don't go to the big clubs. They're too crowded, they're too loud, and I can't get laid. Because they're too busy dancing, and I'm trying to walk around going, hi, hi. Yes?
You've been like New York and a lot of big cities and parades, and I was just like, what made you decide to come to Bellingham?
I was invited by the Imperial Court members to come here. A couple of years ago, we talked about it, Brian and Peter and I, and that fell out. All of a sudden, they asked me this year, and Peter and Brian are very dear to me as friends. We're all members of a good charity. And I said, why not? I'll come out. Now, I've been already invited to Portland for next June for some government officials want me to talk to their gay and lesbian organizations. I said, fine, but it can't be the first week because I'll be in Lexington, Kentucky. So, and then I'll probably be swamped with interviews. When gay marriage passed in New York City, I did 27 interviews between 1:30 in the afternoon and 9:30 at night. And I mean, I was like hoarse. When I was on CNN, I said to the woman afterward, Leslie, what time is this going to be shown tonight? She goes, Tree, you were live all over the world. And I said, oh my God, thank God I didn't curse. And she said, no, 2-second delay. Now, the Queen Mother of America, who runs the charity we all belong to, said she was turning channels and went, oh my God, that's Tree, went back. My friends in Brazil saw it, put on their Stonewall shirts and walked to the beach. And I never saw it until somebody sent me a copy. And I always laugh. They sent me to CBS on 34th Street, ABC on 68th Street. I was on radio. Who has radios anymore? I said, who's going to see me on radio? You know? And I did so many interviews. Eventually, I went in the bar, and I said, I'll be right back. And I went out the side door, and I went to the nearest bar. And I never went back. I was thirsty. I was tired. And every time there is something happening that TV is out there, the owner of the bar goes, Granny, go ahead. The owner calls me Granny. And so he says, go ahead, because he has no idea what happened those days. So I'm the liaison for the bar. And it's a privilege to do it. I like doing it. I like the kids to know what's going on. I like the straight generation to know what's going on. I want everybody to know we went through hell to get our rights. And now that hell has air conditioning, everybody wants to go. Okay, let's wrap this up. I'm getting thirsty and there's a bar here. So no more questions? All right. Thank you all very much.